Hello and welcome to Planet 40k. A recent Death Guard poll on our Patreon saw a tie between two of the options, so I've chosen one of them that I want to go with, which is the Death Guard Defiler. So get involved in our polls by checking out our Patreon, links in the description. Okay, so onto the video itself. The Defiler comes in heavy support slots, kind of like a Chaos variant of a Dreadnought. It's 10 power or 165 points before selecting the Wargear, which is actually 30 points more than the Chaos Defiler, although the Chaos variant has still got the 8th edition stats and the weapon is slightly worse, which you'll see in the Wargear section. Keywords of note consist of the Play Company keyword, it's got the Chaos keyword, it's a Death Guard, all the usual stuff there. Then it has the Demon keyword, Smokescreen and Demon Engine, all of which will interact with some stratagems. Then of course it's a vehicle. As for its stat line, it's got movement of 8 inch, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 8, toughness 7, wounds 14, attacks 5, leadership 8 and a 3+ save. So it's nice that weapon skill and ballistic skill have been upgraded to 3+ since the Codex release, which was a huge help. The Defiler does come with degrading stat line however, so when it drops to 7 wounds or less, it's going to be losing a bit of movement, a bit of weapon skill and ballistic skill, and those 3 characteristics will drop again once the model is below 3 wounds. Moving into the abilities, there are 4 here to get through. The first is the standard Death Guard ability of Contagions of Nurgle. So the Defiler has access to Nurgle's Gift, which is a -1 to enemy units' toughnesses when within contagion range. So this range is going to increase each battle round. It has Infernal Regeneration, which is in the command phase. A lost wound is returned to your model, which is pretty good, especially with a degrading stat line. It's got its demonic 5+ in 1 save, and then lastly, it is a vehicle so it will explode when destroyed on a roll of a 6. And units within 6 inches will suffer D3 mortal wounds. So no disgustingly resilient here unfortunately, which is a little bit of a concern. As for the Wargear, now this thing's a bit like a Swiss Army knife, it's got a fair amount of weapons. Its stock loadout is a Defiler cannon, a Reaper autocannon, twin heavy flamers and Defiler claws. So let's jump into each of those, starting with the big one, the Defiler cannon. So it's got a 72 inch range, heavy D6, strength 8, -2 AP and the damage is 3 and it's got the blast ability. So the range pretty much covers the 6-foot board, and being a heavy weapon only really matters when it's firing into engagement range, as it will be on a -1 to hit. You can still move and fire it as you're not an infantry model. D6 shot says a touch unreliable, but if you do fire it at infantry, you can fall back on the fact that it has the blast ability. Then strength 8 will wound toughness 4 on 2s, and anything toughness 5 right up to toughness 7 on 3s, which isn't that bad at all. -2 AP is pretty good, and then that damage 3 a pop is very good. So who are your targets for this weapon? Now due to the damage being a flat 3, this in my opinion is quite wasteful on regular infantry, even Space Marine troops, unless you're talking about heavy intercessors which have 3 wounds a pop. But they are also toughness 5, so you're only going to be wounded on 3s against them. Terminators are more of an ideal target as they're still toughness 4, so you wound them on 2s, and they're 3 wound models, so that -2 AP is going to bring them down to a 4+ armor save, and any wounds that go through are killing a model. If you rolled a 3 for your shots, on average you're going to get 2 hits from that and require 2s to wound, so you're very likely going to score those 2 wounds, each one at -2 AP as mentioned, and also as mentioned it's a 4+ save, so on average you're going to kill 1 Terminator model. Doesn't sound like much, but this is just 1 weapon out of many that you're firing each turn. You can also opt to fire at bigger units such as vehicles. You'll wound on 3s, but due to the higher toughness you're only likely going to be maybe getting 1 wound through, so only inflicting 3 damage on a vehicle. Don't get me wrong, you can roll high on the amount of shots that you have, then it has a potential of doing a reasonable amount of damage, but it's just getting that roll to roll well, which is your stumbling block. So next it's got the Reaper autocannon. It's got a 36 inch range, it's heavy 4, strength 7, -2 AP and the damage is 1. Another heavy weapon, this time only strength 7 and 1 damage. So it's a little bit puzzling to who you're targeting with this. With 4 shots you're going to average 2.7 hits and wounding toughness 7 on 4s, resulting in 1.3 wounds on average. And after potential saves, so we're talking less than 1 damage on average being scored. Firing it at infantry is pretty much 3s to wound, unless it's going against toughness 3 units, then it'll be 2s to wound. So those toughness 3 units, you're going to kill 2 models on average. Tougher infantry such as marines, you're going to peel off a wound on average, so it's not the greatest weapon here. Next you've got the twin heavy flamer. It's a 12 inch range, heavy 2d6, strength 5, -1 AP, 1 damage, and you're auto hitting with the weapon. So it's quite a random number of shots, but it does auto hit, so you can forgive the profile here. Strength 5 usually wounds infantry on 3s, and -1 AP gives even marines a 50-50 on whether they lose a wound or not for each wound that goes through. So it's also not bad as it auto hits in Overwatch 2. The final weapon within the stock loadout is the Defiler claws. They're strength ×2, making them strength 16, minus 3 AP and the damage is D6. So it's a ridiculous strength at 16, so even land raiders are being wounded on 2s. There's not many units in the game that have a toughness 9 or more, but if they do, then you'll be wounded on 3s. So let's do a breakdown for this one. 5 attacks base, which you always have 5 as that characteristic doesn't actually degrade. Hitting on 3s is an average of 3.3 hits there. Wounded on 2s is an average of 2.8 wounds. Minus 3 AP puts most things on a 6+ armor save at best, or their inbound save if they carry one. Then the unfortunate part of the profile is the damage being an unreliable D6. Sometimes that damage roll can be amazing, sometimes it will want to make you tear your hair out. But using averages here, it's doing about 8.1 damage on average against anything toughness 8 or less, which is pretty good. Okay, this model has plenty of upgrades, and so far I think it needs them as some of the weapons are a little bit underwhelming. So the model's twin heavy flamer can be replaced with one of the following: one Havoc launcher or one Defiler Scourge. Now, out of the weapons I thought the twin heavy flamer did okay, but let's check out the options and see if they're any better. So the Havoc launcher is a 48-inch range, heavy D6, strength 5, no AP, 1 damage with the blast ability. This one's a free upgrade, you sacrifice the auto hits for a ranged attack from distance. This one's built for your light screens and light infantry as there's no AP and there's only 1 damage. And yet again it's got the unreliable D6 hits, which seems to be a bit of a theme with this model. The Defiler Scourge is 10 points, it's strength plus 4 making it a strength 12, minus 2 AP and the damage is 2, and each time the bearer fights you make 3 additional attacks with this weapon. So this one does interest me. It's wounding infantry and light vehicles on 2s and heavier stuff on 3s. It's 3 attacks, so on average 2 will hit, and then at minus 2 AP and 2 damage it's pretty useful. It is going to replace the twin heavy flamer, so I am a bit torn on whether I'd actually do this or not, because both seem pretty good. The second set of options is to replace the Reaper autocannon, which I felt was pretty poor. So you can replace it with either one twin heavy bolter or one twin las cannon. So the twin heavy bolter, 36-inch range, heavy 6, strength 5, minus 1 AP and 2 damage. So for 10 points you can switch this out. Now I personally would do it, more shots, and whether you're strength 5 or strength 7 against infantry you're always wounded on 3s. But with heavy bolters you've got 2 damage, not 1. So now this becomes a genuine marine killer for each wound that goes through. And it averages 1.3 unsaved wounds against toughness 4 models, which is more than the Reaper autocannon could do. Now if you wanted some serious firepower, then this maybe rocks your boat. The twin las cannon, which is 20 points, is 48-inch range, heavy 2, strength 9, minus 3 AP and the damage is D6. So as mentioned it's 20 points, so you're spending quite a bit of points here now, but there's a 75% chance of one of your shots going through and then them failing a save, but then of course it goes on to the unreliable territory of a D6 damage. But this only replaces your Reaper autocannon, so when you add the damage from this weapon to the damage of the Defiler cannon, you're going to average a total of 6 or 7 damage combined, which is not bad considering that you'll be shooting this and the cannon right off the bat from turn 1 and then onwards from each battle round. The final set of options, so the model can be equipped with one of the following: a combi bolter, a combi flamer, a combi melter or a combi plasma. Now these are not replacing anything, they're just additional weapons. I'll display all 4 for you now, so you know what these are. They're all 10 points each except for the combi bolter, which is 5, but I wouldn't actually bother taking it. Combi flamer is a nice weapon, especially when you stack it alongside your twin heavy flamer build, but for me it's either the combi flamer or the combi melter, because the combi plasma, it's only useful when you're supercharging it, and if you roll a 1 you're literally going to destroy the Defiler, so there's no way I'm taking it. But really there's 3 sets of options here. You can either go with the long range weapon options, which consists of a Havoc launcher and maybe the twin las cannon. You can opt for the closer range options, which is more melee based, so you can keep the twin heavy flamer, take a combi flamer 2, or ditch the twin heavy flamer completely for the Defiler Scourge, then go for maybe the twin heavy bolter 2. Or the third way is to try and be the jack of all trades kind of unit, having a bit of everything, so you can be multifunctional, like having a twin heavy bolter with the twin flamers, then adding a combi melter on top. Then of course you've always got that Defiler claw for melee. Okay, moving away from the Wargear side of things, let's talk stratagems, starting with demonic gluttony. So use the stratagem in the fight phase for a demon engine model before it fights. Until the end of the phase, for each enemy model destroyed by your demon engine, your model is going to regain 1 lost wound to a maximum of 3 per phase. So very nice, especially as he gains a lost wound in the command phase, so this is going to help him stay at his top bracket. Next you've got Flash Outbreak for 2 CP. Use this in the command phase. You select one Plague Company unit that has Contagions of Nurgle ability that your Defiler does not have. Then until the start of the next command phase, effectively your Defiler is going to have that ability. Not only that, until the start of the next command phase, you're going to count the battle round number as 1 higher for the purposes of the contagion range. So this model potentially could be on the front line fighting in melee. This could be extremely useful, especially as warlord traits within the play companies section of the codex allow for contagions. So this stratagem allows another unit to have a contagion for a turn. So for example, the warlord trait Shamble Rot, which is a contagion ability, can be given to the Defiler for 1 turn. Next you've got Putrid Detonation. It's going to cost 2 CP due to the amount of wounds that this model has. You put it on a Death Guard vehicle, and then when it's destroyed, instead of rolling to see if it's destroyed, it automatically destroys, and of course you've thrown off mortal wounds there. It's pretty good on a melee based Defiler particularly, as it's going to be nearby enemy units. Foul Smokescreen is next. Now due to him having the Smokescreen keyword, you can use this. It'll be a -1 to enemy hit rolls when they attack your Defiler. Definitely make use of this one, as he's got no access to Disgustingly Resilient. Could mean that he's considered quite a weak link in your army for an early target. Another one that benefits the Defiler is Sickly Corrosion. It's 2 command points. Use the stratagem either in the fight phase or the shooting phase when a Death Guard model from the army makes an attack with a plague weapon. Now the Defiler doesn't have any plague weapons, but this is why it's important. So when they score a hit with a plague weapon, then until the end of the turn, each attack made by a Death Guard model that doesn't have a plague weapon now gets to reroll 1s against that unit that you've hit. So you will need to use this on another unit to begin with that has a plague weapon. Then once you've done that, all the Defiler's weapons are basically now plague weapons until the end of the turn. So you're rerolling 1s to wound with things like your Defiler cannon, your twin heavy flamers and whatnot. So it's very nice. So looking at some Codex Synergy next, I wanted to focus on one of the play companies in particular, which is the Poxmongers. So they've got a stratagem which is Bilious Blood Rush for 1 CP. You use it on a demon engine within that play company. Then until the end of the phase, models can make attacks with their blast weapon even when they're in engagement range of the unit. And then not only that, it's going to be a +1 to hit roll against the enemy unit within that engagement range. So now this is pretty awesome. It's almost built perfectly for your Defiler, as he's going to be in combat and still be firing his blast weapons, which is the Defiler cannon. Also if you took the Havoc Launcher, that's there too. And it's going to be a +1 to hit for that fight. Also, the same play company has a relic that allows the bearer to hand a 4+ in-run save to nearby demon engine models. Now this thing already has a 5+ demon save, but a 4+ is much better. What's cool about the relic is you can reuse this in every command phase. So if you have multiple demon engines, you can keep switching up the target every turn. Continuing on with the Codex Synergy, I wanted to list a couple of simple options that work well with your Defiler. Firstly, from the Contagion discipline, you can cast Miasma of Pestilence on your Defiler from a Psyker to make any enemy weapons that target him a -1 to hit. So it's quite similar to the Foul Smokescreen stratagem. There's also the Gift of Plagues to increase the Defiler's contagion range by 6 inches. Again, it works really well if you've chosen a short or mid-range Defiler loadout. Okay, to summarise this demon engine and get a rating out, starting with the good. Lots of weaponry, very versatile, so it can be dealing with all sorts of threats, whether it's a small light screening unit or whether it's a big and bulky vehicle. It's got plenty of wounds as well and regains 1 each turn. He's also got that important 5+ demon save, which is really needed as he hasn't got Disgustingly Resilient. As for the bad, just as I mentioned, no Disgustingly Resilient, doesn't actually have much synergy with other units except for the Psychers, and a lot of weapons just seem to be lost in the current meta, like the Reaper autocannon in particular feels like a bit of a tax. Now even though he's a jack of all trades type unit, he is a master of none. There's better units for your heavy weapons at range such as a Plague Crawler, and there's also better options in the mid range such as the Blight Hauler or the Blight Drones. And then as for the short range and melee, you've of course got Terminators at your disposal. I'm still undecided on the best way to use him, which I don't think is a good thing. On one hand, it could be a great counter charge that fires from range with a cannon and maybe a las cannon, but on the other hand I could throw him at the board, get him in my opponent's face with a combi melter and twin heavy flamers followed up by the Defiler Claw, and maybe even scoring some victory points for good measure. So yeah, I'm a little bit confused on whether that's a good or a bad point, not knowing exactly what his battlefield role is while building a list. But once you see your opponent's list and the battlefield layout, then maybe it will help decide, but I prefer knowing while I'm in the list building stage. The loss of Disgustingly Resilient and the price increase is no help for the Defiler's profile either. So moving into the rating, I've always liked the model, and it's great that he's been buffed with Weapon Skill 3 and Ballistic Skill 3, but I'm still unsure what the best way of using him is, so I'm going to be going with a Planet 40k rating of 3 out of 5. He's not bad, I think there's just better in each role. Guys, drop a like on your exits and don't forget to sub if you are new. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you in the next one.